What is one of your favorite stories that you've covered on your channel?
There's a lot, as you've seen, and I'm actually hoping to make it into a website, so it'll be, I could kind of go deeper in with the stories. But my favorite story is probably, I don't know, there's so many, but I'll probably say the Bumpy Johnson Babe Ruth story.
Okay.
And that's kind of just, it's not really a story. It's just a little tale.
Talk about that and how Babe Ruth was connected to him.
Yeah. So, Harlem's Cotton Club in the, 30s, especially, jazz was popping off. Harlem Renaissance, of course, it was really, mostly the black culture epicenter of America. But, party central. So Babe Ruth, arguably the greatest baseball player of all time, New York Yankee, his career was over by now. He was, they say he might have been a little depressed or whatever it may be, but he liked to go out and party. And he likely met, Harlem's godfather, Bumpy Johnson, at the Cotton Club, partying. And, they became tight. And one Christmas, I believe it was 1935 off the top of my head, could be wrong. One Christmas in the 30s though, Babe Ruth actually gifted Bumpy with a golden Cartier pocket watch. And he engraved on it, to Bumpy, Merry Christmas. And that, it was on sale at an auction, I think in 2017. And that's kind of how I found out about that. So that's out there somewhere, that Cartier watch, which I wish I could, get my hands on. And that was going for like, over $10,000, I think. But yeah, that's just a cool little tale, if you will. The greatest baseball player of all time gave, Harlem's OG a golden Cartier watch. Yeah. At Harlem, or maybe not at the Cotton Club, but that's where they met. It's just kind of it's a cool little story.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder how many other prominent sports figures throughout the years were associated, with certain gangs. We already know that boxing, the mob has had their hands in boxing and things like that. Do you know about any other prominent sports figures? I'm sure it's Googleable, but do you know about any other prominent sports figures that were connected to the mob in some way?
Oh yeah, all throughout the years, I would say one that's close to home for me is Joe DiMaggio, who was another Yankee legend. He was close to the Richie the Boot Boyardo mob. And if you're not familiar with him, he was a Newark gangster from Prohibition all the way until his death. When he was like in his 90s or 80s, he was old. And he was tight with Joe DiMaggio, along with his Tony Boyardo, his son. They hung out together at Boyardo's club or restaurant. It was called the Vittorio Castle in Newark, and DiMaggio actually, and his brother, who was a professional player, hung out with the Boyardo mob a lot. Jerry Katina, as I said, Richie the Boot Boyardo, his son, and there was a handful of other Newark mobsters that were close with Joe DiMaggio, and there's other all celebrity and gangster ties, no doubt.
Frank Sinatra, I believe, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. That's a big one. And you mentioned before, Michael Franzese, his father, Sonny Franzese, had a well-known relationship with Marilyn Monroe. Again, other athletes too. A lot of times, like football players, like Jets football players, they cohorted with mobsters to fix games. So yeah, that was a common thing, celebrities and prominent athletes hanging out with gangsters, no doubt.
And it makes you wonder, you know, just in hindsight, it makes you wonder, looking back at all the Super Bowls and all the NBA championships and all the boxing matches, and it makes you wonder, I wonder how many of those were thrown.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about that. I was actually thinking about that recently. I think mostly, you know, as you mentioned, boxing was probably the most infiltrated sport by the mob. But yeah, definitely like football games. I know like playoff football games and Super Bowls, like you said, probably. Yeah, it definitely makes you wonder.